The unexpected visitor. The United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland vibrated with energy on that crisp Monday morning in early spring. The historic grounds, hallowed by nearly 2 centuries of naval tradition, buzzed with a controlled chaos that defined military precision. Formations of midshipmen marched in perfect synchronization across the parade grounds, their polished shoes striking the pavement with metronomic precision while stone-faced instructors observed their every movement with critical eyes. Cadet Lieutenant Sarah Miller stood at rigid attention, her back straight as a mast, her uniform impeccably pressed despite the grueling morning PT session she completed less than an hour earlier. At 22, she was among the Academy's most promising officers in training, respected by instructors and peers alike for her unwavering discipline and natural leadership abilities. The daughter of a decorated Navy officer who had died heroically during a rescue mission, Sarah carried both her father's legacy and her own ambitions on her squared shoulders. "Bancroft Hall inspection in 40 minutes," called out Commander Richards, his voice cutting through the morning air. "I expect nothing less than perfection." As the formation dispersed, Sarah caught sight of her best friend and fellow cadet, Ethan Wright, jogging toward her. Unlike Sarah, whose military bearing seemed ingrained in her DNA, Ethan had the relaxed confidence of someone who excelled without appearing to try too hard. Brilliant but skeptical, he balanced Sarah's idealism with his own pragmatic worldview. "You're not going to believe this," Ethan said, slightly out of breath. His eyes gleamed with excitement as he pointed toward the Academy's main gate. Sarah followed his gaze and felt her heart skip a beat. A sleek black SUV with tinted windows had just pulled up to the security checkpoint. Even from this distance, the presidential seal was unmistakable. Before she could process what she was seeing, the rear door swung open, and a tall figure with unmistakable golden hair stepped out. "Is that—" Sarah began. "Donald Trump," Ethan confirmed, his voice dropping to an astonished whisper. "What's he doing here?" There was nothing on the schedule about a presidential visit. Sarah watched as a former president strode confidently through the gate, carrying a small leather briefcase. He wore a perfectly tailored Navy suit that somehow made him look both presidential and approachable. There was no entourage, no press, just Trump and what appeared to be a single Secret Service agent hanging back at a respectful distance. "This isn't normal protocol," Sarah murmured, her training kicking in as she assessed the situation. "Presidential visits are announced weeks in advance. There's supposed to be security sweeps, briefings." Around them, a ripple of awareness spread through the Academy grounds. Cadets paused mid-stride, instructors stood straighter, and whispered conversations erupted everywhere. The unexpected arrival of a former president, especially one as polarizing as Donald Trump, sent shockwaves through the disciplined environment. Captain James Morrison, the Academy's executive officer, hurried across the ground to intercept Trump, his uniform freshly adjusted and his face a mask of professional composure despite the surprise. Sarah watched as the captain offered a crisp salute. "Mr. President, it's an unexpected honor," Captain Morrison said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet parade ground. "May I ask what brings you to the Academy today?" Trump smiled enigmatically, his posture relaxed but commanding. "I'm here to observe and speak with your finest cadets, off the record. No cameras, no press. Just a straightforward conversation about leadership." Captain Morrison hesitated for just a fraction of a second, long enough for Sarah to notice, before nodding. "Of course, sir. I'll arrange it immediately." Within minutes, orders filtered through the chain of command. Select cadets were to report to Mahon Hall immediately. To Sarah's surprise, her name was among those called. "Why would he want to talk to us?" Sarah whispered to Ethan as they hurried toward the historic building. Ethan shrugged, his expression guarded. With Trump, who knows? Could be a publicity stunt, could be genuine interest. Just remember to watch what you say. Sarah nodded, though something in her gut told her there was more to this visit than met the eye. The leather briefcase Trump carried intrigued her. What could be inside that warranted a personal, unannounced visit from a former president? Inside Mahon Hall, 20 cadets stood at attention in a semicircle, Sarah and Ethan among them. Trump entered the room with Captain Morrison, his presence immediately commanding attention. He walked slowly along the line of cadets, studying each face with an intensity that felt almost physical. When he reached Sarah, he paused. His blue eyes locked with Hayes for a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. There was something in his gaze, a recognition, perhaps, or an assessment, that made Sarah feel as though he was seeing beyond her uniform to something underneath. "At ease, cadets," Trump finally said, his voice surprisingly soft in the hallowed hall. "I appreciate your time today." The cadets relaxed their postures slightly, though the tension in the room remained palpable. "You're probably wondering why I'm here," Trump continued, placing his briefcase on a nearby table. "I could have sent an aide or made a phone call, but some things deserve a personal touch." He paused, scanning the faces before him. "Cadet Miller, would you join me for a walk?" Sarah felt a heart hammer against her ribcage. All eyes in the room turned to her, expressions ranging from curiosity to envy. Ethan gave her a subtle nod of encouragement. "Yes, sir," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite her confusion. As they exited Mahan Hall into the bright morning sunlight, Sarah's mind raced. Why, what could Trump possibly want to discuss that required singling her out from among the Academy's top cadets? "Beautiful campus," Trump remarked as they strolled past the historic buildings. "Remind me of what makes America great: tradition, excellence, dedication." "Yes, sir," Sarah agreed, unsure where this conversation was heading. Trump slowed his pace, turning to face her directly. "So, Sarah Miller, why did you join the Navy?" The directness of the question caught her off guard, but she answered without hesitation. "To serve my country, sir, and to honor my father's legacy." "Your father?" Trump inquired, his tone softening perceptibly. Sarah swallowed the emotion that always rose when she spoke of him. "Captain William Miller, sir. He commanded the USS Truman during the Gulf Rescue Mission of 2016. He didn't make it back." Trump nodded slowly, genuine respect visible in his expression. "I remember that mission. Your father saved 37 sailors that day. He must have been a remarkable man." "He was, sir," Sarah said, surprised that Trump would recall such details. "He taught me that true leadership means putting others before yourself." "A lesson many in Washington could learn," Trump commented, a hint of wryness in his tone. He gestured toward the Academy's training fields. "Let's keep walking. I'd like to hear more." As they crossed the grounds, Sarah felt herself relaxing despite the surreal nature of the situation. Trump asked about her studies, her aspirations, her views on naval strategy. To her surprise, he listened intently to her answers, occasionally offering insights from his own experiences that revealed a deeper understanding of military matters than she had expected. They approached the Academy's notorious obstacle course, a brutal test of physical endurance and mental fortitude that had broken many promising cadets. Trump stopped, studying the towering walls, mud pits, and rope climbs with interest. "Tell me something honestly, Cadet Miller," he said abruptly. "Do you think you're the best at what you do?" Sarah hesitated, caught between modesty and the confidence expected of a naval officer. "I don't know about being the best, sir, but I work harder than most." Trump turned to face her fully, his expression suddenly intense. "Hard work is good, but confidence is essential. Show me what you're made of." He gestured toward the obstacle course. "Finish this faster than anyone else in your unit." Sarah blinked, momentarily stunned by the unexpected challenge. Around them, cadets and instructors had begun to gather, word of Trump's presence spreading like wildfire across the Academy. "Now, sir?" Sarah asked, even as she mentally prepared herself for the grueling course. Trump checked his watch. "No time like the present. Cadet." Sarah took a deep breath, nodded once, and stepped to the starting line. This wasn't just about completing an obstacle course. It was a test, though what exactly, she wasn't sure. As she waited for the signal to begin, she caught sight of Ethan in the growing crowd, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. The whistle blew, and Sarah launched herself into the course with determined precision. Years of training took over as she scaled walls, swung across gaps, and crawled under barbed wire. Her muscles burned and her lungs screamed for oxygen, but she pushed forward, aware of Trump watching her every move. Halfway through, disaster struck. A misstep on a muddy incline sent her sliding backward, precious seconds ticking away. For a heartbeat, frustration threatened to overwhelm her. Then she heard her father's voice in her memory, It's not about never falling, Sarah. It's about getting back up every single time. With renewed determination, Sarah regained her footing and attacked the rest of the course with fierce intensity. She cleared the final obstacle, a 15-foot wall, with one explosive leap, crossing the finish line with a time that even she knew was exceptional. Gasping for air, hands on her knees, she looked up to find Trump approaching, slow applause punctuating his steps. "Impressive, Cadet Miller," he said, his expression unreadable. "But this is only the beginning." Operation Valor. An hour later, Sarah and the other selected cadets found themselves in a secure briefing room, murmuring in confusion and anticipation. Ethan sidled up beside Sarah, his expression concerned. "What was that about?" he whispered. "The obstacle course." Sarah shook her head, still processing the strange encounter. "I'm not sure. It felt like a test, but for what?" Before Ethan could respond, Trump entered the room, followed by Captain Morrison and two civilians whom Sarah didn't recognize. The room immediately fell silent. Trump placed his leather briefcase on the conference table and surveyed the group. "You're probably wondering why I'm here," he began, his voice filling the room despite its measured tone. "Why the secrecy? Why the sudden appearance?" He unlatched the briefcase and removed several folders, each marked with a bold header, Operation Valor. "This," he said, holding up one of the folders, "is why I came. I'm launching a program to honor unsung heroes and train the next generation of leaders. You've been chosen to be part of it." The cadets exchanged puzzled glances. Sarah raised her hand, her curiosity overcoming protocol. "Permission to speak, sir?" Trump nodded. "Go ahead, Cadet Miller." "Why us, sir?" Sarah asked the question on everyone's mind. Trump's gaze was steady and penetrating. "Because you represent the best of what this nation can be, determined, resilient, and selfless. Those aren't just qualities we need in our military. They're qualities we need in all aspects of American life." He opened one of the folders and began to explain Operation Valor in detail. The program, as Trump outlined it, was ambitious. Top cadets from the Naval Academy would be paired with at-risk youth from underprivileged backgrounds across the country. These cadets would serve as mentors, teaching leadership skills, discipline, and most importantly, hope. "These kids face challenges most of you can't imagine," Trump continued, his tone somber. "Poverty, violence, broken homes. Your job is to guide them, to show them what's possible when someone believes in you." Sarah felt a surge of unexpected emotion. This was far beyond anything she'd expected when she'd been summoned to meet with the former president. "This isn't a photo op," Trump emphasized, as if reading her thoughts. "There will be no press, no publicity. This is about real change, one life at a time." As the briefing concluded, Trump approached Sarah once more. "One more thing. Cadet Miller," he said quietly, "these kids need more than just discipline. They need hope, real hope that their lives can be different. Can you handle that?" Sarah met his gaze, feeling the weight of the responsibility being offered to her. "Yes, sir," she answered, her voice firm despite her internal uncertainty. "I'll do my best." Trump nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I thought you might say that." After Trump departed, the selected cadets remained in the briefing room, discussing the unexpected assignment. Opinion was divided. Some were excited by the opportunity, others skeptical of the motives behind it. "I still don't get it," Ethan said to Sarah as they walked back to their quarters that evening. "Why would Trump, of all people, care about mentoring inner-city kids? It doesn't fit his image." Sarah considered the question thoughtfully. Maybe that's exactly why he's doing it. Or maybe there's more to him than the image we've been shown. Ethan frowned. "I just don't trust his motives. What if this is all for publicity down the road?" "He specifically said no press, no publicity," Sarah countered. "Besides, does it matter? If it helps even one of these kids, isn't it worth it?" Ethan sighed, his expression troubled. "You're always so idealistic, Sarah. Not everything is as straightforward as you want it to be." "And you're always so cynical," Sarah shot back, frustration creeping into her voice. "Maybe this isn't about him, Ethan. Maybe it's about us, about what we can do with this opportunity." Ethan didn't respond immediately, but his expression softened. Deep down, Sarah knew he wanted to believe in the mission as much as she did. Something just held him back, a wariness that came from seeing the world through a different lens and haze. "Just be careful," he finally said. "Keep your eyes open." A week later, Sarah and the other selected cadets were introduced to the youth they would be mentoring. The meeting took place at a community center in southeast Washington, D.C., a neighborhood marked by economic hardship and limited opportunities. Sarah's assigned mentee was Malik Johnson, a 15-year-old with intelligent eyes and a defensive posture that spoke volumes about his life experiences. As she approached him, Malik crossed his arms over his chest, his expression a practiced mask of indifference. "I don't need your help," he said immediately, his voice dripping with attitude. "I'm not some charity case." Sarah smiled, undeterred. "Well, that's good, because I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to work with you. There's a difference." Malik's eyebrow arched slightly, the first crack in his armor. "Whatever. We'll see about that." From across the room, Trump observed the interactions, speaking quietly with one of the program coordinators. "Watch her," he said, nodding toward Sarah and Malik. "She's got what it takes, but she'll need patience to break through to him." The coordinator nodded. "What made you choose her specifically for this role, so?" Trump's expression grew thoughtful. "Sometimes you just recognize something in a person, a quality that can't be taught. She reminded me of someone I knew a long time ago." Breaking barriers. The following weeks tested Sarah's patience and determination like nothing in her rigorous Naval Academy training had prepared her for. Every attempt she made to connect with Malik seemed to hit an invisible wall. He would roll his eyes, mutter under his breath, or sometimes simply walk away mid-conversation. "I don't get it," Sarah confessed to Ethan after a particularly challenging session. "I've tried everything. Nothing works." Ethan, who had been paired with a more receptive 14-year-old named Jamal, offered what support he could. These kids have been let down by adults their whole lives. Trust takes time. Sarah nodded, knowing he was right but still frustrated by her lack of progress. "I just feel like I'm failing him somehow." "You're not failing," Ethan assured her. "You're showing up. That's more than most people have done for him." Determined not to give up, Sarah tried a different approach during their next meeting. Instead of pushing Malik to talk about himself or his goals, she simply sat beside him in comfortable silence as he sketched in a worn notebook. After several minutes, curiosity got the better of her. Glancing over, she caught sight of a remarkably detailed drawing of a naval battleship. "That's really good," she said quietly, genuine admiration in her voice. Malik looked up, momentarily surprised by the compliment. "It's just a sketch," he muttered, closing the notebook quickly as if embarrassed. "Do you like ships?" Sarah asked, seizing on this first real opening. Malik hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Yeah, I like designing things. Ships, planes, buildings. Have you ever thought about becoming an engineer?" Sarah ventured. Malik's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Yeah, right. People like me don't get those kinds of chances." "What do you mean, people like you?" Tanisha answered the door to her modest apartment, exhaustion evident in the lines of her face. When she recognized a visitor standing in her hallway, her expression transformed from weariness to shock. "Mr. President," she stammered, disbelief coloring her voice. "Ms. Johnson," Trump greeted her warmly. "May I come in? I'd like to talk about your son, Malik." Inside the sparsely furnished but immaculately clean apartment, Tanisha perched nervously on the edge of her sofa. "Is Malik in trouble?" Trump shook his head. "Quite the opposite. I've heard about Malik from the Operation Vela program. He's got tremendous potential." Tanisha's expression softened with pride. "He's always been smart, creative, but—" She hesitated. "Opportunities are hard to come by in this neighborhood." "That's precisely why I'm here," Trump said, leaning forward slightly. "Your son has a gift for design and engineering, but he needs support, the kind that goes beyond what even the best mentorship program can provide." He reached into his jacket and withdrew an envelope, handing it to Tanisha. "This is for Malik's future." With trembling fingers, Tanisha opened the envelope. Inside was a formal letter offering Malik a full scholarship to the Capital STEM Academy, one of the most prestigious science and technology high schools in the region. The letter was accompanied by a check covering additional expenses, uniforms, supplies, transportation. Tears welled in Tanisha's eyes as she read the letter. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would you do this for us?" Trump's expression grew serious. "Because talent shouldn't be wasted, Ms. Johnson. Not in America. Not anywhere." "Thank you," Tanisha said, her voice breaking. "I've been praying for a miracle for that boy, and maybe this is it." Trump stood to leave. "There's just one condition," he said. "Malik can't know this came from me. As far as is concerned, this scholarship is based solely on his merit and potential, which, to be clear, it is." Back at the academy, Ethan had begun to question his initial skepticism about Operation Valor. Curious to see firsthand what the program was accomplishing, he decided to visit one of the youth centers where mentoring sessions were held. What he witnessed had changed something fundamental in his perspective. Cadets in uniform worked side by side with teenagers from some of DC's toughest neighborhoods, building models, solving problems, engaging in team-building exercises. The atmosphere was one of mutual respect and genuine engagement. A small boy, no older than 12, approached Ethan and offered a sharp salute. "Sir, I want to be like you when I grow up." Ethan froze, caught off guard by the boy's earnest admiration. In the child's wide, hopeful eyes, Ethan saw something that transcended politics, skepticism, and cynicism, pure, untarnished aspiration. "What's your name, son?" Ethan asked, returning the salute. "Darius, so." "Well, Darius, I think you can be better than me. Much better." From across the room, Ethan spotted Sarah working with Malik. The tension that had characterized their earlier interactions seemed to have dissipated somewhat. Malik was showing Sarah something in his notebook, and she was responding with evident enthusiasm. Later, as they walked back to campus together, Ethan admitted, "Maybe I was wrong about this program." Sarah glanced at him in surprise. "What changed your mind?" "I saw what was actually happening, not what I assumed was happening," Ethan replied honestly. "It's not about politics or publicity. It's about real change." That evening, Sarah was surprised to find Trump sitting alone by the Academy's memorial wall, a solemn tribute to fallen naval officers. The names of those who had made the ultimate sacrifice were etched into polished stone, illuminated by soft, respectful lighting. Among them was William Miller, Sarah's father. "May I join you, sir?" Sarah asked quietly. Trump looked up, nodding. "I was just paying my respects." Sarah sat beside him, her eyes finding her father's name automatically, as they always did. "You surprise me, sir," she said after a moment of silence. "I didn't expect you to care this much about Operation Valor." Trump chuckled softly. "There's a lot people don't know about me, Cadet Miller. The cameras see what they want to see. The press reports what they want to report. And what do they miss?" Sarah asked, genuinely curious. "That leadership isn't always about being in the spotlight. Sometimes it's about the quiet work that happens behind scenes." Trump's gaze returned to the wall of names. These men and women understood that. They didn't serve for recognition. They served because it was right. Sarah nodded, a lump forming in her throat. "My father used to say something similar. He said true heroes don't wear capes. They wear the uniform of everyday commitment." "Wise man," Trump commented. He turned to face her directly. "How are things going with Malik?" "Slowly," Sarah admitted. "But there's progress. He's starting to trust me, I think." "Trust is earned, not given," Trump said. "Keep showing up. That's half the battle right there." As silence settled between them again, Sarah found herself asking a question that had been on her mind since the program began. "Do you ever regret anything, sir, about your time in office?" Trump's expression grew somber in the gentle light. "Plenty," he said simply, "but regret doesn't change the past. It only pushes you to do better in the present." The weight of those words stayed with Sarah long after Trump had departed. There was a depth to the man that belied his public persona, a complexity that reminded her not to judge anyone too quickly or too harshly.